This time, the giant beast, carrying a doomsday conspiracy, surges in again. Countless mechas are controlled by the monster and mutate. The steel giants created by human elites corrupt and develop ferocious muscles. At this critical moment of human survival and death, the Pacific Rim Command dispatches the Ace Mechas. Inside the body of the giant that is hundreds of meters tall, hides supernuclear fusion energy that is powerful enough to destroy the world. But in the face of the fierce attacks of the alien giant beasts, the mecha warriors, which are the trump cards of human beings, have been defeated repeatedly. However, what's even more terrifying is that, in the cockpit of the human mecha, the brain of the alien creature is wriggling eerily. What kind of earth-shattering conspiracy is hidden behind this? Is the Earth's crisis this time really inescapable? 10 years ago, a time-space rift suddenly appeared in the depths of the Pacific Ocean. Under the leadership of the giant beast pioneers, the alien giant beasts came to the Earth through the rift. They are huge in size and powerful in strength. Their ultimate goal is to wipe out human beings and occupy the world. In the face of this huge crisis, human beings created indestructible heavy mechas, but these steel bodies are sophisticated in structure and require 2 pilots to operate them. When human beings plan to operate the mechas and detonate the rift at the bottom of the sea to prevent the invasion of the giant beasts, General Stacker Pentecost, an elite pilot, finally chose to perish together with the enemy in order to complete the mission. With the nuclear bomb exploding, the entrance for the alien giant beasts to land on the Earth turned into nothingness. When people thought that the rift in the abyss had been sealed off, the real nightmare had just begun. But unexpectedly, Jack, General Stacker Pentecost's son, gave up on himself and indulged in pleasure after his father's sacrifice. Now he has degenerated into an idle street ruffian. Jack often sneaks into the mecha scrapyard and earns extra money by stealing and reselling parts. However, this operation didn't go smoothly. After he carefully arrived at the target location, he found that the valuable capacitor had long since disappeared. But the detector showed that the target was still nearby, so he chased in the direction where the signal was coming from. Jack was unwilling to give the capacitor to others. Then he went to a factory building according to the detection positioning. Unexpectedly, the scene in front of him surprised him greatly. There stood a delicate self-made mecha in the room. Jack realized that this machine was of great value. If he could sell it, he would surely make a lot of money. But he didn't expect that Mako Mori launched a surprise attack on him from behind. It turned out that she was the maker of this mecha. Just when the two of them were confronting each other, the military arrived outside the door by car. It turned out that assembling mechas privately is an illegal act. The contraband in the abandoned factory building had already aroused the suspicion of the military. Obviously, they were here to arrest Mako Mori. Seeing this situation, Mako Mori quickly jumped into the cockpit and prepared to escape. Fortunately, the parts in it were already complete. The mecha was successfully activated, with the projection screen lighting up. Mako Mori quickly operated various mechanisms. However, the agile Jack also broke into the cockpit and looked for the co-pilot's position. What he didn't know was that this mecha, named the Brawler, due to its small size, only requires one person to operate. The military was about to enter the house to search. Mako Mori didn't have time to explain and had to take him to escape together. Under her control, the Brawler, which is 10 meters tall, rushed out of the factory building and started running wildly on the street. But just after turning the street corner, the Brawler was blocked by a huge mechanical leg. In front of them was actually the Gypsy Danger, which is hundreds of meters tall. Then the giant mecha issued a warning to them. Hearing this, Mako Mori quickly raised her hands to show surrender. Unexpectedly, a large number of smoke bombs were actually ejected from the arms of the Brawler. It wanted to take the opportunity to escape the pursuit of the military. Its agile body jumped among the ruins, and even shrank into a ball and ran at full speed. Mako Mori made full use of the advantages of speed and size, and drove the mecha to hide in the ruins of the building. She thought that she had successfully escaped the danger, but the big hand of the Gypsy Danger reached straight towards her. When the two of them were about to be caught, Jack had a sudden inspiration. He asked Mako Mori to use all her strength to climb onto the top of the giant mecha. At the same time, he threw off the battery that he had prepared. The electric current instantly made the huge creature shut down. The two of them took the opportunity to escape. While running, Mako Mori asked how long this move could trap the opponent. But before Jack could answer, the giant mecha chased after them again. It can be seen that one battery didn't have much effect on it. After all, this is a mecha belonging to the Pacific Rim Legion. Its strength represents the highest level of human technology. At this moment, Mako Mori still didn't want to give in. She drove the mecha that she had made and continued to run desperately towards the distance. The Gypsy Danger then activated the knuckle electroshock gun. The pursuit mission was finally completed. The Gypsy Danger stretched out its finger and knocked on the cockpit of the mecha. It seemed to be urging them to surrender as soon as possible. They had to give themselves up. Then they were taken to the police station. Fortunately, Jack met his sister Mary here. As a high-ranking official, she promised to let the two of them go immediately, hearing that they could avoid imprisonment. Jack finally let out a sigh of relief. After walking out of the police station, the two of them were sent to the Moylan Mecha training base in China. The captured brawler also came along. As soon as they arrived at the base, Mako Mori, a mecha enthusiast, felt extremely excited. The Savior T-Rex and the Saber Athena, and the Striker Eureka, which has been upgraded from a single core to a dual core. The giant mechas that used to exist only in imagination are now right in front of her. She looked around with great interest, and Jack, who came along, seemed to be deep in thought. It turned out that he used to be a mecha pilot. After this accident happened, the two of them with exceptional talents caught the attention of the military, and were even exempted from imprisonment. The condition was that they would enter the base and cooperate with the training. The experienced Jack became an instructor. The skillful Mako Mori served as a trainee and followed the instructions. The two of them were immediately assigned to the reserve group. They followed the team to carry out simulated training. Although Mako Mori was full of enthusiasm for mechas, but as a newcomer, she had difficulty adapting to the battle for a while. Seeing that the giant beast was already in front of them, she tried her best to launch an attack together with her teammates. Unexpectedly, the giant beast was unharmed. The next second, it raised its hand and smashed towards the cockpit. At this moment, the connection between Mako Mori and her teammates lost its balance. The simulated training had to be terminated. The instructor Nate was very disappointed with her first performance. He had thought that she could deal with the gypsy danger for a long time. She must be an extraordinary driving genius, but at present, she seemed to have average qualifications. After the training ended, the casual Jack had a conversation with Nate in the kitchen. It turned out that the two of them had known each other for a long time. This reunion should have led to a more tacit cooperation. However, the death of his heroic father not only dealt a blow to Jack, but also brought him endless pain and pressure. So his agreeing to become an instructor was just a temporary compromise. Facing the 6-month teaching plan, Jack didn't want to put much effort into it. Hearing this, Nate's expression darkened. He said that the teaching didn't necessarily have to take 6 months, just because the Shaw Group would hold a giant exhibition tomorrow. At that time, the newly developed unmanned mechas would be exhibited. Once the new technology gets official support, the jobs of mecha pilots will be replaced. The training base won't need to train trainees anymore, Jack immediately said. That in that case, he could leave earlier, but there was a barely noticeable complex expression on his face. The next day, the exhibition hosted by Boss Shaw was held as scheduled. The unmanned mechas developed by his group are advanced in technology. They can be quickly deployed strategically through remote control, and solve the problem of the slow deployment speed of mechas. At the same time, it fully avoids casualties. Currently, whether the unmanned mecha plan can receive military support awaits the answer on the voting day. At this time, Mary was still hesitant. She knew that half of the officials had already expressed their support. Her statement would be crucial. Soon it was the voting day, and a large number of protesting people gathered outside the venue. They were so emotional that they even clashed with the army. At the same time, Jack and Nate were arranged to drive the Striker Eureka, and were responsible for maintaining the stability of the scene. It had been 10 years since the last attack by the giant beasts, and the experienced Jack seemed to be out of practice. He lost his balance as soon as he landed. His mind fell into chaos. Fortunately, his willpower made him come to his senses immediately. The two of them continued to carry out the guard mission. However, a strange scene appeared in front of everyone. A large flock of frightened birds flew over from a distance. There was a commotion along the Sydney coastline. It turned out that a giant mecha landed. From the bottom of the sea, it was completely black all over and moved swiftly. Ignoring the warnings from the Striker Eureka, it advanced towards the venue with firm steps. Seeing the Striker Eureka blocking in front of the building, it launched a missile without hesitation. The attack of the shells caused the top helipad to be on the verge of collapse. Fortunately, Jack and the other person reacted quickly. They controlled the Striker Eureka to protect the crowd in time. But this move caused the power source of the mecha to be damaged. It also gave the enemy an opportunity to take advantage of the situation. It launched a crazy attack regardless of the safety of the citizens. The defensive turrets couldn't stop the black mecha either, and they were even blown to pieces by its shells. Mary on the helicopter was operating the scanner, but unexpectedly, the energy data of this out-of-control mecha was almost the same as that of the Striker Eureka. When she wanted to inform Jack of the intelligence, the enemy sent out strong signal interference. Then it aimed at the helicopter not far away and launched a missile. Fortunately, the power system of the Striker Eureka had already been restored. Jack and the other person fought back and threw themselves into the battle again. They revealed their final weapon, the plasma sword. Unexpectedly, the enemy waved its arms, and also took out 2 battle blades with a similar shape. This scene shocked the 2 of them greatly. Before they could come to their senses, the enemy took the lead in launching an attack. The striker Eureka, which was in a passive position, had difficulty parrying for a while. What's worse, Mary's helicopter was impacted and was on the verge of crashing. Facing a desperate situation, she was still trying to send the confidential documents. Jack became extremely anxious at once. After knocking down the enemy with the gravitational chain, he rushed towards Mary's direction. However, after making a powerful leap, the striker Eureka still failed to touch the helicopter. They missed the last rescue opportunity. The mecha fell to the ground. Despite his teammates' shouts, Jack anxiously jumped out of the cockpit and ran towards the direction where the helicopter crashed. Just then, the robot covered in black armor was walking towards here. The striker Eureka was unable to fight back. Fortunately, the Legion had already dispatched other mechas for support. The enemy quickly turned around and disappeared into the sea again. After this accident, Boss Shaw finally got the support of the military. She ordered Dr. Newton, her subordinate, to lead the team to take action quickly. They must complete the global deployment of the unmanned mechas within 48 hours and shoulder the important task of safeguarding the Earth. Jack returned to the base alone. He looked at his sister's holographic projection and fell into memories. Losing his dear family member again made him extremely grieved. The official attitude was firm, and they ordered a thorough investigation into this matter, and they named the hostile mecha Obsidian and vowed to uncover its true features. They aimed to find out the mastermind hiding in the cockpit. Soon, Dr. Herman repaired the documents transmitted by Mary. It showed that the mecha attack seemed to be related to the giant beasts. This inference made everyone find it hard to believe, but after comparing the archives in the base, the data information didn't match any known giant beasts. However, after a detailed search, Dr. Herman finally found clues about the unknown giant beast in the North Siberian Islands. This place used to be the production base of the Mecha Power Core. Now it has been completely abandoned. In order to find out the truth quickly, the military sent Jack and Nate to conduct on-site investigations. The 2 of them drove the striker Eureka to the desolate ice field. The weather on the islands was extremely cold and the environment was harsh. The 2 of them didn't see any living creatures. They thought that Dr. Herman's intelligence was wrong, and planned to scan the abandoned base and then leave the ice field. The next second, Jack noticed something strange. Before the 2 of them could react, an accident swept in along with the shells. When they looked up again, they saw that the destination had already been engulfed by thick smoke. Obsidian actually destroyed the abandoned base. In order to destroy the evidence and cover up the truth, Jack and the other person immediately drove the striker Eureka and pounced forward. They launched a fierce attack with their iron fists. Both sides slid down to the bottom of the cliff, but the battle never stopped. Seeing that the striker Eureka had difficulty withstanding the intense attack of the energy column, Jack and the other person decided to flee. They instantly dove under the ice layer. This move caught Obsidian off guard. Unexpectedly, tracking bombs actually flew out from under the water surface, and then they even split into 6 projectiles. Seeing that Obsidian was blasted into the sea, the striker Eureka quickly rushed out of the water with the opponent, and finally gained the upper hand. After they used the ion cannon to create a distance from the enemy, they drew out their double blades to face the enemy. The determination for revenge made Jack burst out with unlimited potential. After many years, the 2 of them cooperated tacitly again, and used a combination move. Looking at Obsidian, which had lost its power core under their feet, Jack couldn't wait to uncover the true face of the driver. He forcefully opened the opponent's cabin door. The scene in front of them shocked the 2 of them greatly. There was actually an unknown organism in the cabin. Soon after, Dr. Herman conducted research on the organism in Obsidian. He believed that this was the product of an alien giant beast. What's even weirder is that this biological tissue didn't come from an ordinary giant beast, but was carefully studied and transformed by humans, using the remains of the giant beast from 10 years ago. While the base was busy disassembling the Obsidian mecha, Mako Mori, who was very interested in robots, couldn't hold back her curiosity. She led other companions to quietly penetrate deep into the mecha, prying into its internal structure and the mysterious monster organization. Unexpectedly, everyone was negligent for a moment. A trainee was burned by the dripping biological fluid. After the base learned about this, it ordered a serious handling of the matter. They decided to expel Mako Mori, who was disobedient. Jack, as an instructor, thought that the punishment was too severe, but now he was powerless and could only try to console Mako Mori. He even told her that he had also been expelled for making mistakes in the past, trying to comfort her. After this conversation, Mako Mori's brows relaxed. She seemed to have accepted the reality. But the short private investigation was not completely in vain. She told Jack that Obsidian must be related to the Shaw Group, just because the operation mode of the parts in it was unique. Mech Omori, who was familiar with mecha manufacturing, concluded that the Shaw Group was an important breakthrough to uncover the truth. Upon hearing this, Jack decided to report to the base general. Dr. Herman, who was familiar with the giant beasts, also thought that there were many doubts about Obsidian. They should seek help from Newton, their former partner. Then everyone set off separately and prepared to start the investigation. Jack soon came outside the base gate. There were unmanned mechas in the air about to land. It turned out that under Newton's command, the Shaw Group had completed the manufacturing and deployment of all the unmanned mechas. At this time, an accident suddenly occurred. A large number of fault alarms were received within the Shaw Group. The unmanned mechas above the base also showed something abnormal. Their steel bodies actually transformed into blurred flesh and blood. Then they lost control and crashed to the ground. They launched an attack on the Moylan mecha base. The general ordered all the mechas to go out to fight against the enemy attack. The Savior T-Rex was the first to come and fight. However, the mutated mecha managed to subdue the Savior T-Rex in just a few moves. It even launched an airstrike with shells. This caused the command room to collapse with a loud noise. All the people in it sacrificed heroically. In the critical moment, the Shaw Group was already in chaos. Dr. Herman, who arrived here, looked anxious. Finally, he found his familiar friend, Dr. Newton. He quickly admitted that this mutation was closely related to the group. The unmanned mechas must be Boss Shaw's conspiracy, and he said that he needed Newton's help again. Facing such a sincere request, Newton seemed to be moved by him. Then the two of them broke through the restraint of the guards and rushed into the chaotic research room. Newton claimed that he had already reserved the secondary program of the unmanned mechas in order to use it when the machines had unexpected situations. But before Dr. Herman could heave a sigh of relief, he noticed that something was wrong. After the secondary program was activated, all the unmanned mechas lost control. At this moment, he finally understood that Newton in front of him was the real mastermind. It turned out that in that tough battle 10 years ago, the two of them, in order to find out the invasion plan of the alien creatures, didn't hesitate to establish a connection with the giant beast's brain, and they successfully obtained important information and saved the Earth. But unexpectedly, since then, Newton had been controlled by the giant beast pioneers. He privately kept a giant beast's brain, and secretly made countless connections. Finally, under the control of the pioneers, he made use of the research project of the Shaw Group, and implanted alien genes into each unmanned mecha. At this moment, Newton manipulated them to gather above the sea level, and fired a plasma cannon with enormous energy. They opened a time-space rift in the Pacific Rim again. They opened an entrance for the invasion of the alien giant beasts. In the emergency moment, Boss Shaw appeared in time. She raised her gun and confronted Newton, who was controlled by the giant beast. Although the other party escaped in the chaos, Boss Shaw didn't continue to chase. She understood that the top priority was to shut down all the unmanned mechas, so she immediately started to crack the program. There was a rift that had been opened in the Pacific Ocean. Fortunately, Boss Shaw finally regained the control of the program. All the mutated mechas immediately entered the self-destruction program. They stopped the evil plan of destroying the world. The rift at the bottom of the sea disappeared accordingly. This move also saved Jack and the others who were trapped in the base. After he learned about the situation from Dr. Herman, he learned that 3 giant beasts had already arrived on the Earth through the rift. Their sizes were level 4 and level 5 respectively. The situation was urgent. Jack ordered the other party to return as soon as possible to assist in the battle. Soon, Dr. Herman returned to the base with the help of the Shaw Group. After analyzing the movement tracks of the 3 giant beasts, he found that no city had been severely damaged. Obviously, the enemy had other clear goals. To everyone's surprise, the gathering destination of the giant beasts turned out to be Mount Fuji. Dr. Herman instantly understood the problem. Mount Fuji has a large number of rare elements, and the blood in the alien creatures can react violently with them. At that time, it will not only cause the volcanic group in the Pacific Rim to erupt, but also the toxins carried by the giant beasts will spread to the whole world along with the ashes. Ultimately, it will lead to the extinction of human beings and the destruction of the world. The Earth will become a hotbed suitable for the giant beasts to live in. People need to prevent the enemy from approaching Mount Fuji quickly. But the tricky thing is that almost all the existing mechas in the Moylan mecha base have been damaged. At the same time, there have been a large number of casualties among the active pilots. Facing the critical situation, Jack decided to repair the damaged mechas with all his efforts. He called on the training team to quickly enter a state of combat readiness. The key to the survival of the Earth lies on their shoulders. Soon after, with the help of the advanced technology of the Shaw Group, Dr. Herman successfully led the team to repair 4 mechas. In order to solve the problem of the slow deployment speed of the giant mechas, he resolutely put the newly developed aircraft into actual combat. Soon, everyone arrived at Mount Fuji driving the mechas. The three giant beasts had already entered the urban area of Tokyo. They gathered together, roaring and advancing towards Mount Fuji. The local people all hid underground for refuge. Jack quickly made strategic deployments and led the team members to launch an attack. The Saber Athena, which is the most maneuverable, took the lead in making a move. Then the striker Eureka threw a punch at the level 5 giant beast, but unexpectedly, the giant beast emitted strange electric light. After gathering strength, it sent the striker Eureka flying with one blow. It turned out that this giant beast could absorb the attacks it received and convert the energy for its own use. According to Dr. Herman's analysis, the level 5 giant beast was about to use all its energy to fight against the striker Eureka. Jack threw out the gravitational chain and smashed a sturdy high-rise building towards the giant beast. However, the successive heavy blows didn't hurt the giant beast. The other three mechas also got into a tough battle. The Saber Athena was attacked from both sides. Fortunately, with the assistance of the remote firepower from its teammates, it managed to escape the danger. Then the Brave Defender came to support. It used its unique move, the Arc Whip. But just when the mecha team had the upper hand, Newton, the mastermind behind the scenes, appeared on the nearby rooftop. Controlled by the pioneers, he took out a tablet and operated it for a while. In the blink of an eye, a large number of automatic robots poured out from the Shaw Group building. Unexpectedly, the team of robots like locusts didn't launch an attack. Instead, they swarmed towards the giant beasts in the distance, accompanied by a strange blue light. The three alien giant beasts were actually combined into one by the robots. Their surface was also covered with thick armor. Finally, it transformed into a huge giant beast weighing 10,000 tons. Seeing this situation, Jack and the others immediately went to fight. Unexpectedly, the strength of the giant beast had been greatly enhanced. As it punched the ground, the entire mecha team was sent flying by the shockwave. The Brave Defender reacted quickly and landed steadily. Despite Jack's opposition, the two pilots threw out the arc whip and charged towards the enemy. But the giant beast unexpectedly grabbed the whip along the way. Then the Brave Defender was thrown towards the high-rise buildings. One of the pilots died and the other was injured. At the same time, Dr. Herman in the command center had analyzed through remote scanning that the secondary brains of the giant beast were relatively vulnerable, so the mecha team should adjust their battle strategy and attack its three secondary brains. So the striker Eureka took the lead in launching an attack. It gave a heavy blow with the double blades captured from obsidian. The Saber Athena that followed also revealed its plasma sword. It accurately stabbed the giant beast and shattered one of its secondary brains, but it was grabbed by the enemy from the back and thrown out. Just then, Mako Mori and her teammates drove the Phoenix Gorilla and started to attack, but the mecha was actually bitten by the giant beast. When their lives were in danger, Mako Mori and the others ejected from the cockpit and thus escaped the danger. At this moment, the giant beast took steps towards Mount Fuji again. The only mecha left that could fight against it was the striker Eureka. Jack and the other person chose to reveal their light blades and launch an attack from behind the enemy. But the giant beast not only knocked away their weapons, but also pressed the striker Eureka to the ground. The two of them were using the ion cannon to fight back, but the giant beast dodged and pierced the cockpit with its tail. This caused Nate to be severely injured, and he instantly lost the ability to operate the mecha. The giant beast approached Mount Fuji again. Jack was so anxious that he even wanted to operate the mecha alone. However, this would surely cause him to have an overload of pressure, and his brain would go into shock. Seeing this situation, Mako Mori resolutely rushed to support. She jumped up in the direction of the striker Eureka. As expected, she was firmly held up by the mecha. Then Mako Mori jumped into the cockpit. She quickly took the place of the injured person and became the co-pilot. Then, she established a neural connection with Jack. Unfortunately, the fuel of the striker Eureka had been exhausted, and the alien giant beast was still advancing rapidly. At this time, it was only 2 kilometers away from the top of Mount Fuji. Seeing that the situation was urgent, Jack had a sudden inspiration. He decided to use the aircraft to send the striker Eureka into the sky. Finally, he would destroy the giant beast by relying on the self-weight of the mecha. At that time, the two of them would use the escape pod to save their lives. But the map positioning showed that the only available aircraft on the scene was far away from the striker Eureka. The mecha with insufficient fuel couldn't reach the destination. Fortunately, Boss Shaw used the remote control program to activate the brawler. She quickly found the target aircraft and transported it in front of the striker Eureka. To ensure the stability during the ascent, Boss Shaw welded the aircraft and the striker Eureka together. Everything was ready. The aircraft instantly burst out with intense energy. The huge inertia carried the striker Eureka and the brawler into the sky. When they reached an altitude of 10,000 meters, all the energy of the aircraft had been exhausted. At this time, Jack resolutely controlled the striker Eureka to stretch out its arms. It started to fall freely downward. However, the tricky thing was that the giant mecha gradually deviated from the planned route. Mako Mori decided to activate the ion cannon. They bombarded several times in the air. Finally, they aimed at the top of Mount Fuji again. At this time, the striker Eureka had locked onto the giant beast. the top priority for the two of them was to evacuate quickly. However, the escape pod of the mecha malfunctioned at the last moment. In the critical moment, the brawler used a welding gun to cut out an escape opening, and at the same time popped open the cockpit door. Jack and Mako Mori immediately entered it. At the same time, the giant beast had already reached the top of Mount Fuji. It let out a roar as if celebrating the achievement of its goal, but it saw that the striker Eureka was rushing towards it at high speed. The giant beast finally collapsed to the ground with a loud noise. Everyone cheered with joy immediately. Jack and Mako Mori appeared amidst the white snow. It turned out that at the final moment, the brawler jumped up from the giant mecha and saved the lives of the two of them. Soon after, Newton, who was controlled by the pioneers, was captured. He said that he would launch an invasion again. Hearing this, Jack was not afraid at all.
They won't need to worry about coming for us, because we're gonna come for them.
So far, the movie comes to an end. This film quite completely continues the basic settings of the first part. The ending sets the stage for the third part. Although there are some deficiencies in the plot and the portrayal of the characters, the viewing experience of the battles between the mechas and the giant beasts is particularly enjoyable. The presentation of various weapon special effects is very shocking. It is a science fiction blockbuster about monster invasions that is worth watching. Friends who are interested can watch the original film Pacific Rim Uprising. If you like my channel, please like and subscribe to my channel.